Thank you so much. Good day, and thank you for inviting me to speak today. It is indeed an honor and a privilege to celebrate the opening of the UWC ORIC office and this wonderful community engagement colloquium. Can I share my screen?
Yes, you can. You can go ahead and just click share and it would work.
It says somebody else has to stop sharing first. Thank you. All right, now you should be able to see it. Yes. It's always a pleasure for me to speak on my favorite topic, which is societal impacts. And today I'm going to talk about how universities can build institutional capacity for societal impact. Here's a look at the things we're going to talk about in the next few minutes, and I promise I'll be brief because I'm really interested in the discussion we're going to have together. So we're going to talk about impact terminology, the basics of broader impacts. We're going to talk about models of institutional support, and I'll give an example of a localized model and a centralized model. We're going to talk a little bit about ARIS, and then I'm going to end with an invitation. There are just a few terms. These right here are just a few of the terms that people use to describe societal impact around the world. Of course, societal impact. In the Netherlands, we talk about valorization. In the UK and Canada, we talk about knowledge mobilization. And you can see, depending on where you are in the world, whether they use a Z or an S. Oh, slow down. Sorry. Let me stop sharing this for a second. Sorry about that. You would think at this age we would have zoomed down like nobody's business.
It's because it's morning on your side.
That's right, and my computer's just waking up. Absolutely, hasn't had enough coffee. So you can tell by where we are in the world, whether we use a Z or an A in knowledge mobilization. And then, of course, broader impacts. And, you know, in Australia, we also call it knowledge translation. So in the US, we call it broader impacts. There are some, you know, sort of nuanced challenges or nuances within how they're used, but I'm going to use them interchangeably today. So now a few basics about broader impacts. All proposals submitted to the US National Science Foundation are evaluated on their intellectual merit, whether or not they advance the field, and their broader impacts, which is the benefit to society. A couple of things about that. The research can be the broader impact. And this is really important because we don't want to set up a false dichotomy where research doesn't have any societal value in and of itself. In fact, I hope that all research will ultimately benefit society in some way. But NSF also realized that all research, particularly basic research, will have immediately apparent impact. And so they allow for other activities that to be included in the grant that benefit society, the broader impacts of the research. We call those things broader impacts activities, or here on the slide, BIAs. Those activities can be directly related to the research itself or advance other societal priorities that I'll discuss in a minute. But before I move on, I want to mention that the best broader impacts are the ones that are seamlessly integrated with the research. So we're really trying to get people to think about a broader impacts identity, how you tie the research that they're doing into the community engagement and then into ultimately impact. The NSF put forward 9 areas of impact that relate to their priorities for societal impact, and these are directly related to congressional legislation. These are by no means exclusive, exhaustive, or prescriptive. In fact, when we talk about them, NSF makes us say, you know, these are very, these are suggested. There's many other ways that you can also encompass broader impacts. The first 5 relate primarily to people, and these are the ones that are used most often to fulfill the broader impacts requirement. Full participation of women, persons with disabilities, and underrepresented minorities in STEM, improve STEM education and educator development at any level. And this is really important because that means anywhere from preschool all the way through lifelong learning. That means students and teachers, so it's very broad. increase public scientific literacy and public engagement with science and technology, improve well-being of individuals in society, and development of a diverse, globally competitive STEM workforce. The remaining 4 are equally important, and researchers are just now beginning to incorporate them more fully into their broader impacts. This all seems fairly straightforward, but what's the problem with broader impacts? Why is there institutional infrastructure for impact needed? Just over 10 years ago, the governing body of the NSF, the National Science Board, conducted a review of the merit criteria, and they found that researchers and campus administrators absolutely understand the intellectual merit. They understand how to evaluate research. What they didn't understand, and where there was a lack of clarity, was what is meant by broader impacts and how do you evaluate it. In response to that, the National Science Board said, we have to strengthen these rules. We want to make sure that universities are understanding how to do it, researchers can get it, and we're going to keep it and take it even more seriously and clarify the rules. So in response to the National Science Board, many universities began to ask personnel to learn everything they could about broader impacts and to help researchers write competitive proposals. That's how I got my start in this business, and I'm going to discuss that in a few minutes. There are as many different ways of addressing broader impact support as there are types of institutions. I'm going to highlight here the 2 main models I've seen used, the local or unit model or the centralized or campus model. The first model, I would guess, is the most common. It's the local model of support. It operates at the department or college level, and its original purpose was to support researchers within that unit. Oftentimes, that mandate gets expanded to support researchers across the campus, sometimes with funding to do that work, and sometimes not. An example of this comes from Northwestern University in Evanston, Illinois, home of the School of Education and Social Policy's Office of Community Education Partnerships. And you'll see OSUP, as it's called, works to bridge the research, practice, and service missions of the School of Education and Social Policy and Northwestern University to create initiatives and partnerships that positively impact our home communities of Evanston and Chicago that can be shared and scaled far beyond. Although they're located within the School of Education and Social Policy, they partner with researchers across campus and beyond to deliver high quality engagement programming. Some of their partners include the Evanston and Chicago Public Schools, corporations, as well as the Chicago Mayor's Office. They also help researchers create their public engagement plans for research proposals. The connector here at the University of Missouri is an example of a campus level impact office, and the one, of course, that I'm the most familiar with. It was started in 2012 to provide broader impact support for researchers submitting NSF proposals. In the beginning, we consulted with faculty and gave training on broader impacts, and we absolutely ran no programming. All we did was help on the pre-submission side. Today, the connector has grown and continues to consult with researchers at all levels, including graduate students, postdocs, and undergraduates who are applying for NSF fellowships. But it also coordinates programming, such as the MU Engagement Scholars Program. And you'll see a picture here of Dr. Tim Evans. He's our own campus superhero called the Antidote, and the Young Scientist Expo. It's important to note that the connector and its director, Dr. Sarah Vassmer, report to both the Office of Research and Economic Development, as well as the Office of Extension and Engagement, as do I. This connection provides communities and researchers easy access to each other and breaks down barriers to engagement, which, as you know, universities can be awfully daunting places to reach into from communities, and often sometimes our researchers have trouble reaching out even to communities. So we try to be that connector. As in this image to the left here, you can see all the things the connector does. So of course, still proposal development and training. We really try to highlight success stories of researchers, and particularly those who are engaging in community engagement. We provide some evaluation support, but honestly, most of that is referring people to other evaluators because, as you know, evaluation of impact is really challenging. Again, graduate and postdoc training, we help people find funding opportunities. We're now engaging in science and other outreach and public engagement, some research, but most of our time is spent on building collaborations and connections and working with faculty. The connector sits at the campus level and provides support to all units. The other thing that's interesting about the connector is we also provide support for the other 3 campuses in the UM system. So we're often traveling to go work with researchers on other campuses. Now that we've talked briefly about 2 models for institutional impact infrastructure, let's just mention briefly 4 characteristics of successful offices. The first is administrative and faculty champions, and this is really crucial to getting an office off the ground and sustaining it. In fact, when we talk about ORIC, one of the things that when we designed it, we had to have an impact practitioner, but also administrative partner who would help with that. Administrative partners provide funding and help bring other units into the work. This is really important. Faculty need for the work and enthusiasm about having the office support goes a long way in convincing campuses to support the office, right? So not only do you need an administrative partner, you also need faculty who are championing the work of the office and saying how helpful it has been to them. Another characteristic of successful impact office is defining that success. On our campus, I always tell people that having a broader impacts office or the connector is not a right. It's not something that we have to have. It's something that's a privilege that we have, and that we're very fortunate to have that. But it's not like a conflict of interest office or something like that where it's compliance focused. This is something that we have because we see the value in it. So being clear about what counts as success and how you'll measure it is also important. For us, the success of the connector is measured in more than just the number of research grants we work on and if they get funded. And I think that's really important. When you have a funding agency like the NSF who has in their merit criteria public engagement, it's really easy for people to say, well, your measure of success is to get more research grants funded. Well, actually, there's way much more that there needs to be talked about in terms of impact. So think deeply about what information you can gather and how it helps tell your story, because telling your story is going to be really important. Telling the story of the researchers and the great engagement they're doing, telling the story of the institution, but then also telling the story of your office. And I will encourage you, successful offices do a good job of highlighting annually in some sort of report their success, so there's never any doubt about the value of the office. And then lastly, find your community. The ARIS Center exists to serve the greater impact community, and we treat each other like family. A lot of times people talk about how great it was that we hosted the first Broader Impacts Infrastructure Summit on our campus here at Mizzou in 2013. And I always tell people I did it because I needed to find my people. I needed support. At that time, there was a lot of things that were happening at the grassroots level, but there wasn't a group of people who were sharing their stories and sharing their successes and frustrations. And so it was as much for me as it was for the community. And then from there, things began to grow. So find colleagues and organizations that support impact work and push you to be better. So first of all, I'm going to invite you to be part of the ARIS community. We are a global community of more than 1,000 members in about 8 countries. We were founded in 2018 with support from the National Science Foundation, and ARIS exists to build individual and institutional capacity for research impact. We do that in multiple ways. The ORIC program that UWC is part of, coordinated by Dr. Jory Weintraub, whom you hear from later today, is an important effort of our center. It's one of the capstone things that we do to build institutional capacity for this work. In addition to ORIC, we also provide training for researchers and practitioners. We do that through webinars, we do that through institutional visits, we do that through building resources. We also give fellowships every year. We have about 30 fellows currently working on all different kinds of projects. We have a job board. We also give out awards for research impact every year. And then we have a really thriving online community trying to get people connected in ways, particularly because we haven't been able to meet in person, keeping them connected. The other thing we do is we work with the NSF and other funders to grow support for broader impacts. So thank you for giving me your time today, and I'm going to give you an invitation as I promised. Please, every year we host an annual conference. We started in 2013. with the first Broader Impact Summit. This is our 10th summit. We're super excited about that. The last 2 years, our conference has been virtual. We're hoping to get to Durham, North Carolina. We tried to get there in 2020. We're believing we're going to be there in 2022. And we invite you to be a part of that. We're still working through the details. We'd love to have you in person, but there also will be some sort of virtual component. So we hope that we can enjoy and we can invite you into our community, and hopefully you'll be able to participate in the conference in some way. Again, thank you for giving me your time today, and I'm looking forward to learning from you as we start our discussion. I see in the chat that Cornell mentioned that that they presented a workshop. I should tell you that the call for proposals for the summit will be coming out in the next month or so, and we would welcome anyone who wants to give a presentation.
But I do hope that it will be a blended event as well, just in case some of us can't travel yet. So just an idea to think of, because we'd love to be presenting again next year.
There will be some sort of virtual component, so we can do that.